Greetings and welcome back to Room 303 and LearnStrong.net as we are now engaging in one more of our Emily Dickinson poems. We are looking now at poem 77. I never heard the word escape. The desire to escape in this poem is for us going to be problematic. Escape from what? And exactly what she's referencing isn't always going to be clear. I mean, if you'll think about it, we've now worked with the previous 76 poems, and our assumptions are that you've been following our stuff at LearnStrong.net, down that left-hand side, Chats with Emily, our playlist. And you could already identify a number of poems where Emily is talking about escape. That might be, for example, dying. That might be, for example, losing certain kinds of fears and inhibitions or whatever. So as we play this game out, we're going to be messing around with the symbolism of bars. We just finished with exaltation is the going, and if poem 76, and I mean, think about the power of that as it relates to this notion of escape and freedom. The symbolism of bars, and we've seen several other kind of things. Prisons was mentioned. I mean, things that keep us from the thing we want. Now, there is an interesting quote in the biography, in the biography information, that we know that Emily struggled with the whole issue of household duties, and Emily's niece, Martha, Austin, her brother's daughter, once told the story of how at times Emily would stand up in a landing in the house and look down from outside of her room, and she would put her thumb and forefinger together, and she would turn an imaginary key, and then say to her niece, Martha, Maddie, it's just a turn and freedom, Maddie. Now, you know, is she talking about something as, you know, as simple as that, or is she talking about something else? That, by the way, there was a poem of this that was addressed to Sue, and in 1891, when this poem was published, it was initially titled Escape. As we know, today we don't have any of these poems titled. I never hear the word escape. Let's go to work with it. I never hear the word escape without a quicker blood, a sudden expectation, a flying attitude. I never hear of prisons broad by soldiers battered down, but I tug childish at my bars only to fail again. Now, I find this fascinating. When we get to poem 277, real quickly, we're gonna hear, what if I say I shall not wait? What if I burst the fleshly gate and pass escaped to thee? And then when we get to poem 382, we're going to play a similar game as well, that will read something like this: escape from circumstances and a name. So she will say this. Every time I hear the word escape, she says, my blood quickens, and I have this expectation. Go back to poem 76 with exaltation. And then a flying attitude. Now, of course, this is Emily at her best with her symbolism of the bird in flight. In other words, when I hear that word, I cannot help but think about the joy that there must be from escaping and flying. And then she'll come back to the construction again, I never hear. And now she'll go to prisons broad, by soldiers battered down, but I tug childish at my bars. And of course, we're back to bars in poem 76. We'll also see this in poem 1052, the idea of prison, the things that keep us from the things we want. And she says it only to fail again. Now, childish to me is the central motif and word of this poem. You'll remember in poem 70 that she talks about herself with God and God lifting his little girl over the walls of heaven to get past the pearly gates. This idea of being a child, and Emily thought of herself as childlike in many of her poems. I'll just give you a list of the poems where childish is used. Poems 103, 257, 348, 576, 584, and 717. All of them will play this game of the child or the childlike or childish. And I think what's happening here for Emily is the recognition that it is often childish to wish for an escape that one has to realize one cannot really easily emancipate oneself from, or maybe not at all. And I think that's the point at 2A. Freedom is difficult to achieve, and sometimes impossible to achieve. Certainly, to be able to just do whatever one wants, to get past the bars. At 2B, I love the key word of childish. At 3A, well, as we said, poem 70 will be this idea of the little girl as Emily will identify herself. But I want to take us to the narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass. We've given a whole bunch of lectures on this classic texts and sections from this text at learnstrong.net. And I think that Douglass will make that observation that, for example, the greatest form of slavery is the lack of an education. Because if one doesn't have an education, one is forever, perpetually behind those bars. Finally, at 3B, what was a time in your life that you felt, much like Emily expresses it here, trapped behind bars, and it was your childish hope that somehow you could get away, and now you look back and you go, yeah, that was not so easy to escape at all. Thank you.